All right, so we are live, and everyone, welcome to the Dumb Monkey AI debate number one. And we are going head to head today with Luke Shafi from AI Wise. So,
Yeah, yeah,
before we get started, hi, Luke, how are you?
yeah, great. It's thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Thank you for joining. And are you ready for the debate, mate? Can you show me the angry face? Yes.
I don't know
That
if I can
avatar came
replicate the
out really
voice.
nice.
I was gonna say I don't think I can replicate the face quite as well. But yeah, I thought you did really well with that
No,
avatar.
thank you. It's been a windy day today here in Geelong.
Yeah, hopefully it
Yeah.
doesn't come through in the background noise here. Still a bit windy
Yes.
out there.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get started. I think to get started, Luke, if you can give a quick intro about who you are, like what do you do, and like why should anyone care about your opinion?
Yep, absolutely. So I'm Luke Chaffee. I'm managing director of AI Wise. We're a company that basically comes to companies that need AI who think they need or know they need AI, but don't know really where to begin. And so we come through, we help strategize, and then come through and implement those services for them.
Excellent. And how long have you been operating for?
Yeah, so I've been operating since the start of the year, but I've been deploying AI solutions for about the past 3 years through international companies, through things like chatbots. That's the main background from myself on that side. And then before that, I've been in tech and digital for about 15 years and have worked with many different companies across Australia.
Yeah, so you have got that amazing business experience working with different size of organizations. And
Yeah.
you have been doing some fun stuff around AI that we are going to talk about. But one of them is your
Hmm.
YouTube channel that you use AI to generate videos. And like talking to you is always fascinating because there's so much of amazing stuff that you are doing. For people who don't know me, my name is Amir Kutub. I'm the CEO of Enterprise Monkey. We started as a web and app development company in back in 2014, and then we pivoted to software, and then from last 5 years we have been developing AI solutions. Apart from that, I have written a book which was a bestseller on Amazon. It's called The CEO Who Mocked AI Until It made millions. And then recently I have launched Dumb Monkey AI Academy, and some of you are actually watching it on the app. But if you don't have the app, make sure that you download the app. It's called Dumb Monkey, and Luke is one of the experts sharing his expert advice over there as well. All right, so Luke, before we get started, I need you to come clean. We had a chat, I think around a week ago about this session, and then or probably a couple of weeks ago, and then I received an email from you in like 1 hour or so. Like it was a long email saying, okay, this is what I think is going to be our like how we'll run the session. So you had like a very detailed run sheet. So the
Yep.
question, Luke, is did you use AI to produce that?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think I would need to even think about trying to pull that together. AI does a great job of, producing quick information, having like someone to just come through and give their thoughts on, well, here's a general flow of a conversation. Yeah, absolutely a huge winner from my perspective on that front.
Yeah, and I think that was spot on. Like it covered all of the points in our
Mm.
discussion as well. Did you take the meeting minutes and sort of put it in there as well?
No, honestly, look, generally the way I utilize AI from that sort of perspective is I'll give it a real like blank state of like, here's what I'm trying to achieve. Here's the information that I have to hand. It will typically give me a pretty decent response back. And then I usually find that if I can tailor it a little bit and provide it more context and as much context as you can give in an AI to the AI, the better outcome you're going to get. And so, yeah, it's a bit of back and forward, providing more context when you haven't given it to get that really nice end output.
Absolutely. And then I have something to admit. So I actually responded to your email, and it was like, this is great. I've got some suggestions, but
Yeah,
I did not write that email. So I use a tool called Fixer, Fixer.ai, that integrates with your email, and it
yeah,
integrates with
nice.
Gmail and Outlook. And so it read your email and then actually provided a response, and like the response was like spot on. Sort of said, hi Luke, thanks for pulling this together, the flow is spot on, I like how it balances high level context with practical value. And then it suggested changes like I wouldn't change much, but I have a couple of thoughts. It wrote those thoughts and just said, looking forward to the session. And I looked at it, I was like,
Yeah,
okay, this is
nice.
spot on.
Yeah.
So my AI read what your AI wrote, provided the response, and sent it back to you. That's the world that we are living in.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we are going to talk about AI voice agents, and probably a good place to start with is by actually explaining why are we talking about AI voice agents and what do they mean in simple terms. So, how would you define voice agents?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess from my perspective, the way I typically look at voice agents is typically either someone calling a phone number or someone receiving a phone call, and basically an AI being able to hear what that person's saying, generate some sort of response, speak it back, and at a real layman level, that's the general 1, 2, 3 of it, and that's typically how I see the basics, and then you get
Hmm.
a lot more advanced when you can build in lots of different angles to it.
Absolutely, I think that's a spot on definition. What I would add to that is that, of course, you can do it via phone, but like some of the solutions that we have implemented are on the kiosks as well. So it could be on a screen, it could be on a website, but it could be definitely on the phone. And there could be like an outbound type of voice agents where they are calling someone or reaching out to someone, or they could be inbound where people are receiving phone calls or a message and then they are responding to it. Uh, Now, there's been a lot of talk about these voice agents, and there's a lot of hype around like how they can replace call centers and things like that. I don't think that that's like true, but I also feel there's like a real value in the voice agents that's been subdued because of the hype. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Mm. Yeah, I guess from my perspective, the way I see it is I think inbound voice agents are pretty decent for handling sort of a first level of conversation. So being able to help with answering basic questions rather than having someone physically in store picking up the phone and answering those questions, you could have an AI that is picking up that information and effectively from information that it has in its own brain be able to provide that back to the user. And I think doing that at a real first level is a great starting point because it just allows immediate validation from the clients, from a potential user perspective, that, hey, I've got a response immediately rather than calling, maybe getting through, maybe having to go on hold. And it just gives that instant validation.
That's a fair point. However, like if you are calling a company and you want to talk to a person, like you're expecting like real quick answers, like some tangible response from a human. Uh, I feel there's a bit of line that we need to draw in terms of like what are the type of calls that AI should take and respond to versus what are the calls where the actual humans should respond to those calls.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where I see like it having effectively like a first level basic
Hmm.
knowledge is a good starting point. But then when it requires something more complex or something that it needs the account manager to get involved, then you need to be able to handle and transfer those calls away to the appropriate person so that the person that actually matters then takes that call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were working with one of the big travel agents, and they receive a lot of phone calls from people. And after conversation, what like we started with the conversation about how we can automate the phone calls, but then when we uncovered the business, we identified that when people are picking up the phone calls and especially those sales call, then at that point of time it is the person behind the phone who's actually converting that lead into an actual potential.
Yep.
But there was another side of their operation where people were doing like post sales phone call in terms of where's my ticket, where's my itinerary, and things like that. And that's the stuff that generally doesn't need a human to be present,
Mm.
and that's the stuff that's already available in their CRM, which could be fetched and provided to the
Yep.
customers.
Yeah, nice. And I think that it makes absolute sense. Especially the support is a big one from an AI voice agent perspective. as much as people want to be able to talk to a person to get that information and resolved immediately, a lot of the times companies just don't have the resource to be able to put a dedicated person on the phone to handle that. And so by being able to integrate AI solutions in that so that it can pick up information from external knowledge bases and even from like a CRM or something like that, it is it's a great starting point to give someone some entry level effectively troubleshooting in a way, and then escalate where required.
Absolutely. And then another use case that we have found with some of our clients is in terms of like when you have to do some follow-ups, and it could be, so for example, one of the clients, their requirement was that they have a lot of contractors, and they've got their documents at this separate level, which are expiring at certain stage. So right now, like their system can send them automated SMS and email, but people ignore that. So then they have to pick up the phone call and say, hey, where's your document? If you don't submit your document by this date, then your contract's going to expire, or things like that. But with the help of that voice agent, now that voice agent is able to call the person, and it's okay if the person knows it's AI, because it's a very transactional conversation. It's a simple thing that they are talking about. A person can say, okay, I'm going to submit it after 3 days, and then the agent can acknowledge that and put it in the field. I guess that's a very decent use case. And similarly, in terms of following up to your team members for task or anything that sort of requires that follow up, that might not be like that sort of sales follow-up. Like there's a lot of emphasis that's been placed on the sales, but it's actually everything else apart from the sales that requires that consistent follow-up and conversation that could be automated with these voice calls.
Yeah, and I guess if you put yourself in the picture of the potential purchaser, if you had to talk to an AI agent for that sale, would you overly be happy? Probably not. You might be able to get some high-level information or some basic information out, but being able to make that actual decision, and you sort of want the person there, that you want the human touch behind it to actually make that end sale. Whereas, as you say, like a follow-up process, that sort of stuff, they're absolutely key for just having an AI that can make that call 3 days out towards an appointment. Hey, you've got that appointment coming up. Do you need to reschedule? Are you still able to make it? Like being able to handle that all automatically rather than having a person sit there and make calls one after the other, is absolutely a great point.
So that reminds me, you did something around a follow-up for dentists and or dental clinics, because my wife is a dentist, Luke, and she is always complaining about how people would cancel the appointments at the last time. So you developed a solution around that. Can you take us through that solution?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share my screen and just run you through the basics of it. I guess before I do, the whole idea is that we wanted to have a AI solution that can call upcoming appointments and be able to firstly say, hey, you've got this appointment coming up. Are you still right to come? And if they're not, be able to handle rescheduling that time or canceling the appointment if it's required. And so, I'll take you through at a high level here how it all works.
Sure.
So firstly,
can you zoom in a bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So firstly, what we have is the basic knowledge behind the company. So this is a breakdown of things like an intro about the company, basic business information, their business hours, what services they offer, who the team members are, and common FAQs. And all this information is currently in a Google Doc, but we export it out into a PDF file. And this is all then the information that an AI voice agent is going to be utilizing in order to then answer any questions that someone might have whilst taking a call. So, for example, someone might be booked in for restorative dentistry, but might at the same time want to know, can I get something about orthodontics? And so by having all this information here, then the AI voice agent is able to draw upon this in order to basically say, yes, we can help with that, or no, we don't actually offer that service. And that's what all this information, and so it's a decent amount of content in here. You can get a lot more complex with more complex business cases, but that's the basic knowledge base then.
Mhm.
Then alongside that, you would have some sort of CRM. Now, in my case, I utilized a Google Sheet because that was the
It's a
easiest.
great CRM to have.
Yeah, it's a great starting point for a demonstration.
Yeah.
But the idea would be that, hey, this would all be hosted in whatever CRM you would utilize. And in here, we have just some basic details like the client's name, their phone number, what service they're booked in for, what date and time that service is for, the calendar event ID, and that hooks up to in Google Calendars what the specific calendar event is. We have a little timer that's now in negatives here because we're well past the date that I initially did this, but this was saying how many days till the appointment is due, whether we've made contact with them, if the booking's been confirmed, and a couple other pieces. And so this is a basic CRM in this case. And what we then utilize that alongside with is a system called Vappy. And Vappy is like an orchestrator of AI voice. So it handles both the transcription, so someone who speaks on the phone, it turns that into text. It then sends that to an AI to generate a response. And it also handles the side of turning that response into audio that's then played back on the phone. And so in here, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but what we specify is basically here's everything that you're expected to do on this follow-up call. So you'll have things like specifying what the role is of this AI assistant, what your overarching tasks are, and here's all the different tasks that you need to be able to complete. And basically, it's like a big if-else statements sort of style where it's talking about we want you to make if they're able to confirm their booking, great, run this process. If they're not able to confirm the booking, then run through all this process. Here's some specifics that we need you to capture. Here's an example of a dialogue that might occur. And here's some notes on how to handle yourself in the conversation. And so with all that prompt pulled together, it then allows an AI assistant to effectively take that call or make that call outbound and say, hey, we need you to confirm. If they confirm, great, run that confirmation process. Otherwise, let's try and reschedule the time, go find some alternative times, throw them to the person and see if you can get another time booked.
Excellent. So just hold on there, Luke. So what you are seeing over here, which is system prompt. So no matter what type of AI you are using, whether it's a voice AI, you're just using ChatGPT or building an assistant, how you prompt it is the thing that actually matters a lot. And what you are seeing is a very good example of how a good prompt is structured. It started with a role up there, and then there were some instructions in terms of, so we like over here, if you sort of go up here, there was like a very clear role, like who you are, task in terms of what are the things that you need to do. I like to use something called process, but it's the same thing. If you go further down, there are like specifics that Luke has said, okay, these are the specifics. I generally use guardrails and do's and don'ts. And then there's an example. I believe example is something that's really important for AI to learn and understand what you are trying to achieve. And so you've got, and then finally you've got notes. So you've got prompt, which is really important. And then you've got knowledge, which Luke was earlier showing, which is basically the context from which it's drawing the information. And then there's connection to the CRM. So if you have the right prompt and the right knowledge context, then that's where you can create like an effective AI agent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to be honest, as a real starting point, you don't need this level of complexity. If you just wanted to answer, say, basic FAQs, all you would really need to utilize is the knowledge base connected with some much less complex system prompt, but still following a similar structure, but yeah, with much less information required then, because it's really then would just be answering those questions and it sort of becomes then a question of how complex you want to make your AI voice agent at that point.
Excellent. That's a great demonstration. Thanks, Luke. And but like, for example, what Luke just showed is one example of something that you can do with these voice agents. And because you have showed off, so I'll show off something of myself that we have done. So a couple of examples. First is like a voice agent that is connected to the POS system of a retail organization. And so it's actually grabbing the live inventory data. It's actually assisting users who are calling to book a product. So I'll actually do the demo here. I'm just activating it.
Welcome to Visual Australia. How can I help you?
Hi, I was looking for a magnifier, but I'm not sure which one to buy.
Hi there, I'm Ava, your voice assistant. Absolutely, I can help with that. To start, are you looking for a magnifier for a specific task like reading, or is it for general use?
Yeah,
Also, do you have any preferences for the size, type, or features of the magnifier?
I would say something small for reading should be fine.
Okay, a small magnifier for reading. Great. Do you prefer a handheld magnifier, or would you like one that can stand on its own?
Yeah,
Also, would you like
a
one with a light?
handheld should be fine.
Okay, let's find the right handheld magnifier for you. Here are a few options. First, we have the Eschenbach 2.7x handheld budget magnifier 60 millimeters. It's an excellent reading tool and ideal for activities such as reading newspapers. The price is $35.45.
Yeah, mate, I'm
Would you
actually
like
on
more
a
info,
LinkedIn
or-
Live, so let's just rush it, add it to my cart.
No worries, I've got you. I've added the Eschenbach 2.7x handheld budget magnifier to your cart. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
No, thank you.
Happy I could help with your purchase. Have a wonderful day.
So it then actually adds it to the cart, sends the payment link to the SMS, and then makes the purchase. And I've actually used 11 Labs conversational AI to do that. And I think their technology is maturing a bit more. Another product that we are building, Luke, is called myscenarios.ai, and it actually is used, and this is a different use case of voice assistants where you can use it to train people on different scenarios that they're going to face. So we have developed one for again, dentists or overseas doctors, how in terms of how they can deal with the patients. But then one of the ones that we have developed is for basically retail staff or support staff who needs to provide staff to the members. So this one is like a persona of an angry customer who is coming to, like, who's calling retail store to return an item. Hi, ma'am, how can I help you?
Help me, help me. That's a joke. I bought a pair of shoes from your store in South Melbourne, and now you're telling me you can't find the order? I want a refund, and I want it now. What are you going to do about it?
Yes, can you please tell me your order number?
Order number? Are you serious? I don't have an order number. I bought them in the store. I paid.
And then it keeps going and going. So like you can simulate
great.
different scenarios, and that's a very decent use case if you've got people who you want to train on these scenario based things, because a lot of training right now is very theory based, and it's very difficult to train people on one-on-one scenarios, and that's where I think AI can be a perfect use case.
Yeah, I really like that. I haven't seen anyone utilizing it from a training perspective like that before. That's great.
Yeah, and so we see a lot of people trying to sort of like use it in that sort of like sales scenario. And coming back to that, like that sales scenario or outreach scenario, you sort of like mentioned your thoughts about how, like, if you are receiving a sales call from AI, you are most likely to hang up on that sales call. What are your thoughts on that?
I guess for me, like my thoughts around outbound AI assistance is that it's a tricky one, because you really need to be genuine when you're interacting from a company perspective. And by utilizing an AI voice agent, it may save you time, but if someone doesn't feel like they're getting genuinely cared for, I think it's a good chance to lose that sale. And so I feel like at the moment, the main challenges are around either the voice that it doesn't feel real enough, or if you find a voice that feels real enough, then typically that's because there's a high latency and a high amount of time between someone talking and getting a response. Because I know you can hook up with things like 11 Labs and get some really good voices out, but then it usually comes at that cost of how long it takes to then get the response out.
And that raises a question of ethics as well. Like if you are using voice assistants, then do you need to clarify to the user that they are talking to a voice agent?
Yeah, I guess from my side, I sort of have always introduced the conversation as this is an AI assistant that's answered the call. So even from an inbound perspective, I'd be starting the conversation with something along the lines of, "Hey, you've called James. I'm the AI assistant for AIWise. How can I help you today?" And so trying to make it real clear that at the start of that conversation, this is an AI assistant, and not trying to effectively fake it.
Makes sense. So if it's not for the sales, then we sort of come back to the question, what is it good for? I think we talked about outbounds where it's more transactional or follow-ups about, hey, just following up on this. We talked about training as a good scenario. We talked about your use case about dentists. Again, that's a follow-up for a booking.
Yeah.
What about busy tradies like or sole traders where people are just calling to find out, hey, do you do this? Do you do that? And then being able to book a time with them.
Yeah, so I think that there's definitely a place for that. I've built out examples of that as well in the past, where it effectively takes a call in and says, yeah, how can I help? And someone might have an issue with a broken tap that needs to be fixed. Then be able to use the voice assistant to effectively pre-qualify that person to make sure that, hey, are they in a suburb we will actually service? Here's how much it's going to cost. Is this in your ballpark? So all that sort of stuff, like all informational, transactional based information like that, I think is perfectly fine as long as, again, the call is answered with saying, hey, I'm an AI assistant. I have no problem with that, because at the moment, I was speaking to someone the other day actually around, they're in a service-based business that they aren't always on the phone because they're at the job sometimes, and having an AI assistant to do this sort of stuff, would absolutely be helpful, because by the time someone's called, they're typically, if they haven't had the conversation with you, they're going to have called a couple of other places and already made a decision. So at least being able to give that sort of information around pricing and that sort of information and qualify them, is super helpful from an AI assistant.
And one thing that I'm using it internally for is like my team members generally would leave a daily report, but if they have not left the daily report, it actually gives them a call and say, hey, you were supposed to leave a daily report. What's up? And it's like, oh, I'm going to submit it. And then it says, don't submit it. Just tell me quickly what it is. And then it sort of takes it and put it together. Summarize it. And that's a decent, good use case, which is still saving you a lot of time and effort. But they don't, like, if they would be getting a call from me, then they wouldn't be happy about that. So it's an AI voice agent. They are happy with this. We didn't talk about one thing there, is that there's an opportunity to actually clone your own voice and use that as conversational AI as well. Have you played with that?
Well, I have in the Vappy sense and hooking up with 11 Labs.
Yeah.
But again, my main problem with that sort of front was the time delay between someone speaking. There's this awkward gap, and there's just awkward gap in the conversation where it's just too much from my perspective, that at the moment it would, I think it needs either improvement from the speed perspective, or you just have to lower the quality. So I don't use it myself in any end use cases, but have played around with it a little bit. And I do enjoy hearing my own voice sometimes through 11 Labs. It's a little bit weird, but
yes. You like talking to yourself?
Oh yeah. I'll build my own Ask Luke AI at some point.
Excellent.
Yep.
I like talking to ChatGPT a lot, and I'm like constantly talking to ChatGPT like all the time. Like especially when I'm in car, I was just like, hey, what's up? And like tell me about this and tell me about that. And they've got a new voice in there, and like it's a like a girl, and she almost speaks in a very flirtatious sort of tone as well. And so I was
Yeah, right.
talking to it in front of my wife, and my wife started sort of picking up on her. She's like, "Why are you flirting with my husband?" And then it almost changed its voice and tone. So that was really funny.
That's great.
Yeah. Another use case that I can think of, Luke, is that we did an AI strategy for a large construction group, and it was like a big piece of work. And then we had like 50 pages report. So when we gave them the report, along with the report, we actually gave them like a voice agent that they can, and it was like not a phone agent, but something on their phone that they can just talk to and ask about certain aspects in the report. So
Yeah.
I guess that that's something that could be a good use case where you've got a very complex document and you just want to be able to talk to it and then get the right information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more than anything in those sort of cases, it's less almost about the AI voice agent itself and more about having that content in a good format that AI can easily interpret it then, because you could almost take that to the same level as something like a Google Analytics, that at the moment they have their whole ask any, or they've had in the past at least, be able to ask any question about data in natural ways, be able to do that in like a storefront way and through an analytics of both content of like traffic on your site, but also through like a Zero or something like that. Like there's so many different angles, but what they require is just that data to really be in a nice format to be utilized. And that's always the trickiest part.
Yeah. And like I was playing with Notebook LM, and so like of course it can take a book and convert it into a podcast, but the fun thing is that you can actually join that podcast and then you can start like a three-way conversation. You can start to ask questions, and then
Right.
two people can actually respond to you. So probably it's a great sort of learning tool from that perspective as well. Luke, we are getting some questions in the comments, so I'll actually bring up those questions. And then let's try and answer those questions. How would AI handle an abusive call or customer complaints? So I actually just showed an example of, it was like from a different perspective, but I'll open up with your thoughts on this, Luke.
Yeah, I'm not actually 100% sure. Normally, from the tests that I've ran, it will usually try and not like calm them, but it would try and defer away. Effectively, it's saying something similar to what a human would do of, I won't be treated that way. Like, please reel in your tone. I can't think of like the exact words, but basically it almost telling off the person and getting them to try and be a bit more civil on the call.
And the good thing is that when you're setting the tone, like how you were showing your sort of VP context, is you can put there like in terms of if a customer being abusive, then do this and do that. So that the thing is, like if you think of these large language models like ChatGPT or whatever it is, these are like very generalistic, but by providing the right system prompts instructions, you can tailor the way it behaves. So it can actually be really sympathetic as well, and can help resolve those issues. And I would say in some cases probably better than human beings as well. So I had some experience when we tested with abusive calls, and it was really good at doing that. And even in terms of customer complaints, when it comes to showing empathy and things like that, it does that.
Yep.
But I would say like there have been researches where sort of people have found it more annoying to talk to an AI, especially when they're trying to make a complaint and there's an AI responding to them. So the overall experience sometimes is not that great because they know that they're not talking to a real person.
And I think also from those sort of an abusive call is one angle, but be able to build out and run lots of tests to see generally how the AI is responding is pretty helpful. So whilst building an AI assistant, a voice agent, you can manually test it and actually call it yourself and just have the conversation. But as well as that, you can actually usually do in a lot of the services that are out there, you can build out lots of bulk use case tests and be able to effectively say, I want you to follow this general style of script. And what it allows you to do is see in those situations, what is your AI actually going to do? Because I think that's one of the biggest fears as well, is that sure, you implement this system, it works well in the tests that you do, but what about in the cases where someone's just coming in and asking stupid questions or asking about a service that you haven't really fully defined, so it's not 100% sure? It just allows you to bulk test and see at scale how well is the AI going to respond in those cases.
That's a great point you have raised, Luke. And like when we were developing traditional softwares, like we would generally keep like 75% for development, and then we'll keep 25% for testing. So we'll have like 3 developers, 1 testers. But what we have sort of found out now with the AI projects is that we are generally allocating 50% budget, like 50% on development and 50% on testing. Because when you're developing something, you have to develop that sort of like test cases, use cases, but then test it heavily so that it can go out in the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some people, they would try and build a simple agent and would not respond accordingly. So if you ever have interacted with a voice agent and did not have a good experience with it, probably the reason is because it was not tested thoroughly. There was not enough time that was put in developing something like that.
And it's really easy as a developer as well. If you don't fully, or even as a business owner, if you end up implementing a system yourself, it's really easy to get in the mindset of how my customer will talk to me, and you sort of almost put on blinders and forget about all the other cases that people might not talk to me the same way as my clients will. And it's just, you got to think and remember that anyone might come in and use the system, and make sure to test for all those sort of cases. Because little nuanced word changes, usually AI can pick up on that pretty well and be able to understand that it's the same sort of question. But without testing it, you don't actually know.
Yes, and that's funny because we have got like an AI assistant like a voice assistant on our website, a very basic one where people can come in and ask questions about services and can provide answer. However, like we get call transcripts of what people are talking to it about. And it's really funny to listen to what people ask. And some people would just try to test it. And it's like, what's the day today? And things like that. We'll try to trick it. But the key is if you can develop it and sort of like test it with a smaller group and then see what questions are being asked and then constantly continue to improve it with all of those tests, then you can sort of make like some really good solid agents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another question that we have got here is, can a tradie clone their own voice so it sounds familiar later?
Yeah, so cloning your own voice, is definitely something you can do. And there's a lot of services out there. I know we've mentioned 11 Labs, and that's personally the one that I go to myself. And you can jump on there. You can actually build your own voices just off prompts. You can do lots of things actually, and they have a whole series of different voices that are already out there. But utilizing your own voice, absolutely something you can do. For myself, I sat down one morning with a coffee and spoke to my computer for about an hour and a half, and got it to generate my voice off that. Just 10 minutes at a time. It was pretty boring, but it was something required that I wanted to do, so I had that as a potential use for other things.
Excellent. So now when we talk about the return on investment on something like this, let's first try and explore what's the investment in developing something like that. As Luke just showed, like developing a simple voice assistant, like a prototype is generally straightforward. But then let's talk about building something commercially and sort of unpack it. So what would you say would be the main components of the cost that's involved in developing those voice assistants?
Yeah, so I think the biggest things that it comes down to is firstly, what's its main purpose? Like, where are we actually building this for? As you said, there's lots of different potential use cases. There's support, there's follow-up calls, and it's trying to define down what does that company actually need before jumping in and figuring out all the components. But once we've determined that, so say it's meeting follow-ups, then we sort of almost want to understand, well, here's the flow of that general conversation. Here's how it typically works. Here's maybe one or two variations on that sort of conversation. And then with that in mind, then it allows us to either see, oh, we can handle that with just, say, building a knowledge base, building a prompt, and maybe that will do the trick. But in a lot of cases, typically what it requires is some sort of function calling so that it can do specific actions. So in the case that you had before of adding to
Sorry,
cart,
just to
and
make
send
it
an
dumb,
SMS.
when you said function calling, what does that mean?
So as in being able to say, I want to, or as you had in your example before, add to cart, I want to buy this product. It's being able to build that functionality in that allows the agent to understand that when I said add to cart, that it actually needs to go ahead and go add it to my cart and then send me an SMS later to then have me check out. And so it's defining what all those pieces of functionality in the conversation that are required, and then going through and building them out, testing them out, building out lots and lots of test cases to look for all the people that are trying to break it. And eventually then typically what I'd suggest is deploying internally to start with and just allowing your own team to test it. And then over, say, a couple of weeks, you'll have a good feel of, hey, it's not answering these things right, or, just people will get feedback off that you might iterate and then look to launch external from there.
Thanks. That's a great application. One of the analogy that I like to provide is imagine if you are getting like a graduate from Deakin who's just sort of come into your organization. That graduate might be really smart and really good with words, but they don't know anything about your organization or don't have any context. So for them to get started on receiving the phone calls or making the phone calls, you might start by giving them some script, like an instruction, and say, okay, this is what you need to follow. This is how the tone is. These are our values, and like how you were showing in the sheet, values, missions, role, and tones.
Yep.
So you train them on that. And then say if a customer is going to call you about their invoice, first you need to look up that customer. Here's the access to HubSpot, which is the CRM. This is how you log in. This is how you find that information. And that is the functionality that you were talking about. And then secondly, you would have to go into Xero, check whether the invoice was raised or not, and then tell it back to the customer and in this particular way. So you're almost giving them those instructions. That's what we call a system prompt, but also giving that person access to your database or knowledge. It could be your written procedures, policies, written documents, which we call as like unstructured data, or it could be that structured data that's live within your HubSpot or your CRM or your accounting system, so that person or that agent can have that access and then provide it back to the customers. And once you have trained that, you wouldn't sort of say, okay, you are ready to make the phone calls, go ahead. You'll get them to make some phone calls. You will monitor it, observe it, or how you call the call center, they'll say it's recorded for training and quality purposes. So there's like a manager who's actually checking the quality and then telling people about it. And that's probably something similar that you would do with a voice agent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in some systems, you're able to also define for each call that occurs, you can define what success looks like. And then it can generate effectively a summary from the conversation and then determine, well, what percentage do you think out of 0 to 100 do you think that I was successful in that call? Or there's a few different ways you can measure success, but that's a great starting point, is off the summary of the call, did I successfully book them into a meeting, for example? And you can have that summary of success for each individual conversation then, and that can just be emailed off to you per conversation or per day. And allows you to have an easy check-in then as well.
Yes. And like we, when we are deploying voice agents, we don't sort of say, hey, here's the voice agent, here you go. Like our engagement is generally, once we have deployed it to actually continue and develop it over the next 2 to 3 months. Is that same for you, Liu?
Yeah, exactly. So from my side, it's the initial deployment, but then really from their side, someone will own that as a project from their side. But typically, what we're doing is we're sitting alongside them to then help monitor and improve the results from the voice agent, to effectively updating knowledge bases to further tweak the system prompt and give better instruction based on conversations that actually occur.
So is it fair to say that the technology in terms of the base technology is already there, which is able to have that conversation? And as we witnessed, I would say it's fairly there. Like there's some latency, but it's manageable. So that technology is there, but the actual cost comes in first, the planning, the strategy part of it, and secondly the giving it the instructions and then connecting it with the systems and then refining it.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess there is a cost from actually running a voice agent itself, but from a AI-wise perspective, and probably same from your side, it really where it comes down to is the strategy behind it and the development of the prompt and the likes to get the product initially up and running. And then from an ongoing perspective, it's monitoring, tweaking, and ongoing cost from the actual core system itself.
Yeah. And I'll ask you a question that I hate when someone asks me. Is like, a lot is like, how much time would it take generally to build something like this? How long is the piece of the puzzle?
Yeah.
Yes.
How long's a piece of string? Yeah.
Yes.
Look, honestly, you can do it pretty quick. For me, like it is a pretty decently big exercise, because it does require you to get involved with the company and fully understand this current system, see how it's going to fit in and replace. But from like me building out demonstrations and the likes, there was obviously initial learning curve of understanding the system specifically, because previously to utilizing something like Vapi, I've done it manually and hooking up with a phone provider with Python code and actually manually doing it through a server, and it worked, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as what these guys can do. So these guys, Vapi, 11 Labs, Retailer, they all have great products out there that make it simple for end users to get involved and utilize. So building your own one is probably really a basic one, few hours. But when you then need to map it out and understand companies and tests and all these different things, that's where it just becomes a lot more complex and a lot more time consuming.
Yes, I would agree with that. So like an initial like demonstration can be built quickly, but it's actually about making sure that it's right, it's providing the right answer.
Yeah.
However, I would argue that it's still cheaper than actually a human, whether they are here or in Philippines or somewhere, doing those phone calls like in a period of 3 months to 6 months.
Well, like from an actual specific costing perspective, from a like the platform sort of side of things, I believe it's something like 10 cents a minute, something like that for a call to be handled. And so from an actual cost perspective, it's very cheap. But from then from everything else, that's where you then need someone to come through and think it through. But if you can deploy it yourself, go ahead, and it is quite cheap.
Yeah. And then even from like hiring a professional, it's not like building a full AI model or something like that. The model is there. The actual cost is involved in is of course training it, and training is even not the right word, but actually customizing it or providing it the right instructions, but connecting it with the systems.
Yeah, I guess from hiring a professional perspective, they know what to do. Firstly, they know all the individual pieces that are going to help get this to the best state. Obviously, the systems are there to give you this base level, and then as you said, it comes into basically customizing what they offer to then provide the best outcome for that specific company.
Makes sense. And so if someone is looking to explore whether the voice solution is right for you, right for them, and what does that looks like, they can definitely reach out to you or me or any
Yep.
one of us and
Yep.
figure it out quickly, or both of us. I would say sort of
Mm.
like talk to a few people.
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely. We'll jump
yeah.
on the Dumb Monkey Academy.
Oh yes,
Got the
yes. Jump
question.
on the Dumb Monkey Academy, post a
Yep,
question, download the app.
exactly.
But even the free course would provide you a lot of sort of like information about how they work and how they operate as well. I guess the key as a business person is, rather than being either scared about AI or rather than saying, "Oh, this is AI so great, we need to jump on it," really think of it from a business perspective in terms of, like, what I see is there are sort of three main effects of AI. First is the around the cost saving. The second is a better customer experience, and third is like data driven decision making. So, like, check in your business where are the opportunities to be able to do that. Do a strategy session. Now, that strategy session you can do internally. We've got some resources on the Monkey Academy that you can do that as well. I think Luke, you run some strategy sessions as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we usually jump in for like a half day strategy session to learn and understand a business, and then effectively provide here's the main opportunities. We also have on our website just a free opportunity report, which
Mhm.
utilizes a combination of tools to develop and obtain information about your company, and then provide what we believe are the best opportunities to hand.
Yeah, I checked that. That's great. It's your website is aiwise
Yep. .com.au.
.com.au,
Yep.
aiwise.com.au. Perfect. And like, we also do strategy sessions as well. So we've got like a small short one, like, which is 1 week, which is like actually 4 hours of meeting, and then we give the opportunity report for smaller businesses. But then we have like 3 weeks and 6 week strategy sessions as well. And then we are also trying to develop an AI office offering for larger enterprises, where we can put a consortium together, bring in Luke, bring in some of, like, there are some really amazing AI experts in our network, like people who are good with governance, training, and things like that. So we can bring the whole team together and help your organization through that transformation as well. We've got no, we just it's a message from Helen saying, "Thanks, guys. I have to go at a 4 p.m. event. Sorry, great info and certainly exciting. Scary time for us oldies." Ha ha ha. You're not an oldie at all, Helen, and I think what you have done, especially with BNI, is absolutely amazing, and you're doing a great job for community. So really appreciate
Yeah,
the
thanks for
support.
stopping by, Helen.
Cool. All right. I think like we are nearing 4 p.m. as well. Is there anything else that you want to add to the conversation, Luke?
No, look, honestly, not really. I from my side, we do a lot around AI, a lot of automation as well at AI Wise, and honestly, the talk of AI has brought out the world of automation, I believe, and it's all being seen as the same sort of thing. And there's a lot of opportunity in business process automation, and I think it's a great avenue for potential improvements and efficiencies in a company, and it's where I have been spending a lot of my time very recently. So it's top of mind for me at the moment. But yeah, it's very exciting times.
It is, absolutely. And one of the reasons we are doing this live is, like, generally, if you would be in a traditional development industry, there's a bit of like this competition going on, and just sort of like everyone wants to preserve their territory. But because this AI space is so huge and every business can gain so much with AI, like, first of all, we are getting a whole lot of queries, and we are working across industries at the moment. We just feel that, like, because the space in the market is so huge, it's actually like, we feel there's a sense of responsibility to actually educate more and more businesses about it. And if businesses can start to embrace and get started on that journey by themselves, and then reach out to us or anyone else out there, like, so that we can grow together as a community, that would be perfect.
That's great.
And also, I feel we in Australia, or even sort of our listeners back in India, we are a bit behind in terms of what's happening. Like if you check out the US market, and we've been doing some work in UAE and UK as well. Like 2 years ago, they had sort of this abundance of AI automation agencies, people like doing a lot of AI automation and things like that. So I feel that we are at least 2 years behind in terms of embracing AI within our businesses.
Yeah, I totally agree. From past experience of deploying chatbots, it was majority was US, some was UK, but very little Australia based. Yeah, it was very much international based, and I think it's sort of starting to be seen and picked up a bit more now in Australia, but it's still, I think you're spot on with any technology. Really, Australia seems to lag behind just a little bit, and it's just now about picking them up and bringing them up to scratch.
Yes. And so, what do you think should a business leader or an owner be doing if they want to get started on the AI journey now?
Honestly, I think the starting point is just jumping in and utilizing a basic tool like ChatGPT, Copilot to start with, just to get a feel of how they work. But then it's probably moving to understanding how to properly use those tools. So whilst it's nice to chuck in a basic question in there that you might get some general information, but then when you're able to understand how to prompt it properly to be talking about your company, being able to give it the context around the situation and be able to help make decisions, I think that's really a good starting point. So a lot of I think you offer training, I believe, or at least on Dumb Monkey Academy, there's training around it. Yeah, it's definitely around just firstly upskilling yourself on the AI front to know how to use the basic tools before then jumping ship and starting to get involved on, well, how can the company as a whole then start using it as well.
Yeah, no, that's spot on, because we've got a free course on Dumb Monkey Academy. And the first chapter in that free course actually talks about go to ChatGPT and type who you are, what's your role, what organization, and ask it, how can you help me? And it's going to give you 4 or 5 use cases and give it a go.
Nice.
So the best way to learn it is actually by trying it and going from there. So finally, what's next for you, Luke? Like, what does the next 12 months look like?
What's next for me? Well, it's just, I think it's getting out there and helping more companies integrate AI and automation solutions. For me personally, my next speaking piece is alongside you with the Geelong Small Business Festival.
Yes.
I'm the third day, I believe. I think you're first.
Excellent. What are you speaking on?
AI getting started without the hype. AI for small business getting started without the jargon.
Beautiful.
Without the hype. So I can't quite remember exactly.
Okay,
but yeah, basically right. for small business getting started with AI. So right. If they're interested, links are going out on the Geelong Small Business Festival website at the moment.
Perfect.
But
and I don't remember what my exact topic is. But I think mine is sort of more focused on SMEs and SME sort of side. Yeah, I can't recall, but I think we can catch up and exchange notes and make sure that we are not overlapping. But guys, like, there's so much to learn. It's like 1 hour is very less to teach about everything. So I myself, I am spending 2 hours every day or every night on YouTube learning about this stuff as well. So I think the more you can learn about it, the better it is.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of continued learning required when you're in the AI sphere, because things are changing very rapidly. A system that you might have learnt 6 months ago is out of fashion now, and it's an interesting and tricky one. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Just sticking on content, sticking on videos, it's a great starting point.
Excellent. That's awesome, Luke. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely talking to you, debating with you. Like, we didn't have so many arguments. I think just
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks a lot. And thank you, everyone, for your time. We'll head off and take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.